I think we're ready to start again. The workers have done their work.
Just for 1 second.
Yeah. Great, thanks very much. As you are aware, this weekend will once again conclude all our business on a topic in a single weekend. And as with the case of the topic on the manner in which referenda are held, we are deliberating on an issue with a view to making recommendations over the course of today and tomorrow. This morning we heard 4 expert speakers on the topic of fixed-term parliaments. Unlike some of our earlier topics, fixed-term parliaments is a relatively discrete and confined area for the Assembly to consider. This has allowed us to consider the factual position and issues arising over the course of this morning and to get initial feedback from the members before lunch on what should be included in a ballot paper. We will now proceed this afternoon to agree the ballot paper, and our aim is to have the wording settled by this evening so that all that remains for tomorrow's proceedings is for the members to vote. A draft ballot paper prepared by the Secretariat in consultation with the expert advisory group over lunch has been circulated to the members this afternoon, and I think you've all got it. Yes. This draft ballot paper has been prepared based on the feedback from the members before lunch and is therefore very much a member-led document. Ultimately, it is a matter for you, the members, to decide on the ballot paper before any voting can take place. This means that you can add questions, suggest new wording, or indeed remove questions. Following the Assembly's rules of business, we will decide questions about the content and design of the ballot paper based on a show of hands. This is the first opportunity the members have had to view the draft ballot paper, and I know that doesn't make matters easy for you. But before you go into private session to discuss the draft ballot paper, I wanted to provide a brief explanation of each of the questions to explain what the question is trying to get at and what each of the options presented to the members mean. A copy of each question will go up on the screen as I'm explaining it for the benefit of those watching online. A copy of the draft ballot paper will also appear on our website for those who wish to follow along at home. Following the roundtable discussions, members of the expert advisory group, Oran Doyle, Robert Elgee and John Garry, together with myself and the Secretariat, will then be available to answer any questions. Time has been included on the agenda to allow any amendment agreed by the members to be included in the ballot paper. As I've mentioned, the results of the final ballot will form the basis of the recommendations to the Houses of the Oireachtas. So now I'm going to move on and I'm going to deal with the draft ballot paper structure. You will have seen from the hard copy you got that the draft ballot paper is comprised of 4 questions in total. Question 1. That question asks, do you think that fixed-term parliaments, whether absolutely fixed or semi-fixed, for Dáil Éireann and Seanad Éireann, should be introduced? That's the first question. This question addresses the central reason we are convened for this weekend, to consider if fixed-term parliaments should or should not be introduced. In other words, this is basically the question about retaining or changing the status quo, which was mentioned many times this morning. This morning we heard from Dr. Owen Daly about the current system in Ireland where the Taoiseach has power to dissolve the Dáil, and from Dr. Owen O'Malley about how that has operated in practice. We then heard from Professor Petra Schleiter about how fixed and semi-fixed term parliaments operate in other jurisdictions, and from Dr. Rory Costello about how such systems might operate in practice here in Ireland. It is hoped that using the information provided in each of these sessions, the members will be in a position to make an informed decision about the fundamental question of whether fixed-term parliaments should or should not be introduced. That's the fundamental question. In terms of reporting for this question, you are asked to mark X in one box. So that's either yes or no. A majority, and therefore the recommendation of the Assembly, will be determined by reference to the total votes cast in favour of yes and no, with the answer with the highest number of votes deemed to be the majority. It should be noted that a change of the current position would have to be effected by an amendment of the Constitution following a referendum, as indeed was made clear this morning. I'll move on now to question 2, and question 2 is on the screen. Question 2 asks, in the event that absolutely fixed or semi-fixed term parliaments for Dáil Éireann and Seanad Éireann were introduced, how long should the parliamentary term be? This question is not dependent on the outcome of question 1, but stands on its own merits. Members will have heard in the presentation from Professor Petra Schleicher about the systems used in other countries and the time limits which apply in both fixed and semi-fixed term parliaments. In this question, the members are provided with 2 options to choose from, largely based on what we heard this morning. Option 1, 4 years, or option 2, 5 years. Members are asked to mark an X against one of these options. The option that receives the highest number of votes will constitute the recommendation of the Assembly in respect of this question. Now moving on to question 3. Question 3 asks, and I quote, in the event that fixed term parliaments for Dáil Éireann and Seanad Éireann were introduced, which of the following systems would you favour? Once again, this question is not dependent on the outcome of earlier votes and is a standalone question. 2 options are provided for the members to choose from. Option 1, an absolutely fixed term, i.e., in other words, that it cannot, and emphasise cannot, be cut short. And then option 2, a semi-fixed term, and that is one that can, and emphasise can, be cut short. And just to say that you will see that we have explained in question 1 fixed term parliaments by indicating that both of those types are included in the expression, because we've put in whether absolutely fixed or semi-fixed. Now, members will have heard in the presentation from Professor Schleicher about the systems used in other countries and where absolutely fixed or invariable terms exist versus semi-fixed terms. Professor Schleicher's presentation outlined precisely what is meant by these terms and how they are applied. And I would just add there, I think the hard copy of the slides which you got will be of assistance to you in relation to that. The presentation also examined the impacts of introducing those changes on elections, the duration of government, and public policies in other jurisdictions. An absolutely fixed or invariable term means that Parliament will continue for a fixed duration. In other words, a specified number of years commencing on, say, the date of the first meeting. In this case, early dissolution is not allowed in any circumstances. A semi-fixed term is a term in respect of which early dissolution can be allowed in specified circumstances. Members are asked to mark an X against any one of the 2 options provided. The option that receives the highest number of votes will constitute the recommendation of the Assembly in respect of this question, question 3. Now moving on to question 4. And question 4 is on the screen. Question 4 concerns the potential introduction of semi-fixed term parliaments and is asking members to consider which political actors should have a role in authorising an early general election. That question asks, and I quote, in the event that semi-fixed term parliaments for Dáil Éireann and Seanad Éireann were introduced, whose approval should be needed for an early general election to be held? Currently, we have included 4 possible circumstances, labelled A to D, as follows. A, the Cabinet. B, a majority of Dáil Éireann. C, a supermajority of Dáil Éireann, which, as you know, could be, say, 66%. And D, the President. members are asked to mark X in either the yes or no box on each line, in other words, opposite each actor. The result for each will constitute a recommendation of the Assembly. And just in conclusion, I would say that this is the end of my explanation, but of course you're going to have roundtable discussions now, and we're going to have a feedback and questions and answers before we finalise the ballot paper, and the members of the expert advisory group who are here will assist when we get your feedback and in relation to any questions you have. So this is a draft. I emphasise that this is a draft, and you look at it in that context. Thank you very much. What time are we going to? 3:45. We'll start the feedback at 3:45, and we're kind of hooshing, if I may put it that way, or use that expression, the coffee break down the line. So what I'm going to suggest is that you avail of the coffee over there when you need it. So we won't have a formal coffee break. Isn't that what we sort of have in mind? Thank you very much. Yeah.